All right, this video is about disappearing object phenomenon. That's DOP, disappearing object phenomenon. It's when you lose stuff, and sometimes it's right in front of your face. You lose it. You're handling it, it's gone. I mean, really gone. Now, this unit has burned me twice. This is a Dremel wrench. Okay? Now, one day I threw it in the Dremel box. Just like that. Okay? Close it up. Later in the day, come back. Open it up. Couldn't find it. See where it is now? All right, let's put the camera on it. It's hiding right here. But what it can do, one in 10,000 throws, it can fall down in the slots for the tools. And you might not see it. Now, I didn't see it. And I started checking everywhere. Let me make sure you can see where it disappeared too. Here it is, right in here. You know, you throw something like, oh, there. Oh, that's even better. Look at that. It's 1,000,000 to 1 shot. Actually, maybe not. Maybe it's easier to do than that. Anyway, it was down in there like that. And I couldn't find it. And I have sort of like an OCD for stuff that disappears. I obsess over it. I keep thinking about where did I have it last. I am missing several miniature Radio Shack magnets, and today I just went through my headphones for shortwave and crystal radios because I was doing an experiment. Somebody said if you put these rare earth magnets in a certain place on headphones, it'll recharge the magnets. It doesn't. Okay, I just wanted to, and that's the day I lost them. And they could have stuck to something that went in the garbage. Okay, now this is the most amazing object. This is 1 foot long. This is just a plain machinist rule, 12 inches long. It's a piece of junk. You can see it's been ground out. I got it at Edmund Scientific. They had a whole bin of these things, and they were General Tool. And if you look at the markings on them, some of the markings aren't etched deep enough into the ruler. And when this disappeared, I bought this crappy one. This was expensive, and I keep it in a plastic sheath, and it's my backup ruler. But I don't like using it. I like the one that's this one better. Okay. This thing disappeared in New Jersey and reappeared when I got here. All right, I had it in the top part of a Sears toolbox. There's the toolbox. It was in the top part. I took that toolbox totally apart. Okay? All the drawers out, looked in that thing, took, top piece apart. I even vacuumed it out that day. I put it all back in, all the tools where they go. And then when I got here, as soon as I opened the lid up, this was in there. So there's some place that this can slide into on that top piece and disappear and then reappear. But most of the time, I can find what goes missing. Like those little magnets. Magnets can stick to other things. And one day you'll just find them stuck to something else. Okay? And that's what you have to reason out what happened to the object, and there's real weird things like, I'll tell you the other way you can lose your glasses and go freaking crazy. You're sitting there working on something and you got the glasses on your head and something happens outside and you look out the window and then you go running downstairs, take the glasses off and put them in the kitchen somewhere. You run outside, you pick up, maybe your garbage can fell over. And you pick your garbage can up, you run back upstairs, you sit down, you're doing some work, all of a sudden you look around and your glasses are gone. And you're going through every step. You forgot that you went outside because all you had to do was go outside, pick the garbage can up and bring it in or stand it up and then come back in the house. But what happened was you took your glasses with you and you put them in the kitchen because you didn't want to go outside with them. That's where they are. Okay, and I got to be pretty good at where these things disappear to. Now, I have 2 machinist rules, okay, because they constantly disappear in the drawer over there, and they reappear. Today I got 2 of them, and it's just weird. And I usually stay with it until I find it. Okay, and it usually makes sense. It's like when I threw that Dremel wrench in there. Oh, I forgot to tell you too. The other day, I go to put it back in here, and I got this on the seat, on the chair over here. I have this open, and something happens. I think I bumped something else and it fell, and I went to pick it up, and then I turned and that little wrench was missing. Okay, and what happened was I set the wrench down on my desk, and my desk is like Formica and it's black. And when I set that wrench down, it just disappeared. And I picked the item up that fell, and all of a sudden I look at my hand, the wrench is missing because the wrench was about to go back. And I sat down and said, you know what? I'm not going to make myself crazy. I know I had that wrench in my hand, but it was a natural reaction when something dropped to take that wrench out of my hand, pass it to my left hand and set it down while I bent down to pick up what I dropped. Okay? And then, you know, your mind is like, why did that drop? You know, you're pissed off that something dropped. And then now the wrench is missing. I sat down, and then as I'm sitting there, I look over, and there's the wrench on the black surface. And that wrench, it occasionally disappears, but I always find it. This thing, this is a very tiny Starrett pin vise. Okay? This thing is there, and it's not there. In the same drawer. This thing is so annoying. Like today when I went to use it, it was missing the blade. Okay, it was like this. I'm like, okay, so I have to go through the entire drawer. And it's not a big drawer. It's this drawer right here. But it's got a lot of little things in it. And I go through it and, you know, how sitting in a drawer did this come loose? Okay, oh, maybe it does come loose. Oh, I didn't put it in right. All right, maybe it doesn't tighten up. Oh, maybe it doesn't tighten up as tight as it used to. All right, let me try one more time. You know, tools do wear out. Yeah, it's better now. But in other words, I needed this thing, and this was somewhere else in the drawer. And I gave up looking for it, and then later on I took stuff out of the drawer and found it. This thing is a time traveler. This is my favorite scribe. Now, this is basically it had a pick on the end of it, and it was for a dental pick. And my father took it, and he ground down a tip on it, and he used it for scribing lines. And it's heavy. It's just the right diameter. It's perfect. I bought other scribes. I don't like them. I like this one. This thing disappeared on me twice, and I found it. I would not give up till I found it. One time, the phone rings, and I put this in a book to mark the page until I get back from the phone. I'm on the phone, and then I come back and I put the book away. Or the guy on the phone, I think the guy on the phone asked me a question an hour earlier. I put this in to hold the page, and then I went and called him, and he said he didn't need the information. So I just put the book away. Meanwhile, this my favorite scribe for months was sitting in a book. Okay, and I'll tell you, I really don't like working other projects when I don't have my favorite scribe. And I can show you some of the, if they're where they should be. So I have one drawer that's not but pliers now. If I don't do this right, this drawer won't close. Are these going to be where they're supposed to be? Okay, here's one, here's two, there's three. All right. This is what I was using. This is another dental pick, but it's too light. It doesn't. It's okay. I was able to use it, but it wasn't like this one. This was my favorite. And then I went to the machine shop for tools, and this has got a carbide tip in it, and this is really nice. It's a little too heavy. I get really fanatical when you find the right tool. And this thing was like a Radio Shack scribe with a piece of carbide on the end, or a diamond, whatever it was. My father used to borrow these from me, drop them, and then regrind the tip to hide the fact that he dropped it and lost the diamond. I don't know if this is one of the broken ones. Let me get my eye loop and look. Yeah, this one's missing the diamond. He used to go through at least 5 of these I bought, and then finally I gave up. But yeah, and these are my favorite tweezers. Okay, these are stainless steel tweezers. When you're working with something, they're not magnetized. I used them on VCRs. These once before got lost in a book as a page marker. I did it again, but I retraced my steps, and I was able to realize that I had used it as a bookmark. Okay, but it's funny, you know, when you have your favorite tools. And one time I was working with some rods of steel, and I had them in a bin. And when I put them away, I grabbed this, and I put them in with the bin with the rods. And I'm sitting in a chair in the living room, getting ready for a nap, and I'm thinking about when did I have it last. I'm like, you know, I went through this fact that when I lost this using it as a bookmarker, I went and bought these. This I had, and I really make sure I don't lose this again, because it just ruins my day. And I'm thinking there, and I said, you know what? I was working with short pieces of steel. I was building some piece on a CNC machine. I went down, I got that bin out, and I took the rods out one at a time, and that's where it was. But a lot of times, you know, when you're cleaning up, and you're cleaning like a bunch of rods, this looks like a rod, in the bin, okay? And then page markers. I have a habit of doing that. Some people bend the page over, and then that piece of the page falls off at some point. But this was a bookmarker. I lost it for a while. This was a long period of time. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know until I read the name on it, figured out that it was a dental pick, and then my father just ground the tip on the end. And it's not even, but it has just the right weight in your hand. I don't know how to describe it. When you're pressing down to scribe a line in metal, you don't want this to slip. This is perfect for my hand. The one here, this is really good. This is what toolmakers use, you know. But it's just too heavy, you know. I had to use it. I did use it, and then I ended up going to this one, and this is a hollow tube steel. And this had a tool on each end, dental pick tool. But yeah, I was reading up on DOP, disappearing objects phenomenon, and I wanted to get to where I'm getting to now. I have a habit of losing sewing needles. All right, I had a pin cushion with a bunch of sewing needles in it. I also had a pack of sewing needles, and whenever I use them for something, like on the end of I put them in a pin vise and I'm scratching or working something, I lose it. And I lose it in this room here. This is a rugged floor, and I go around in bare feet, and I never find the needle. Never, ever. Once it's gone, I never find it. So I do have one object that disappears on me constantly, and that's sewing needles. And you think at some point you would find it in the rug or you would step on it. No. Okay? But I was reading online, and some people just say that they were looking at an object one day and it actually disappeared in front of them. The worst I have is the sewing needles and then this thing. But I suspect that somewhere on that lid for that toolbox, this could get up in there, and then from vibration being shipped from Pennsylvania, or from New Jersey to Pennsylvania, this bared its head. But it was on top of everything in that drawer when I opened that lid up. And I was like, no way, you know, no way. But it is what it is. And it stays. It stayed in the other house out on the a magnet. That same magnet right there. This is out of a meter movement. Am I in the frame? I don't like this camera. Where's the magnet even? Right here. There's a magnet up against here. And that's where I hang the rulers. Right there. And that's where it hung in New Jersey. And at some point, I was keeping it in the toolbox. But when it got here in Pennsylvania, it was in the top of that toolbox. As soon as I opened up, it was right on top of everything else. So how it got there, how it vibrated to the top, I don't know. You know, But the funny one, and you got to see how I when I threw it, it disappeared in the Dremel box itself. That drove me crazy. Then, like I said, I'm putting it away, and then a second time I lose it for a while. I just sat down. I said, you know what? I was ready to take a break. I'm taking my break. You know, I'm not going to keep making myself nuts over this stuff. But everybody loses stuff. And I bought these little bins. At the dollar store. I buy these. And they're supposed to hook together. They don't. But when I take something apart, I put the parts in here. And that stopped the bullshit. My bench here on the top has some holes through. So a part could go through a hole. And these holes hold, they're for holding clamps and stuff on the top. Different projects I have that I only temporarily hook them up to the bench. And those holes have to be there. And I guess the part goes through the hole and onto the next level, which is a piece of plywood, but you never find it. So by using these, I got rid of the problem. But that's so annoying. And I worked with a guy, hang with him when he used to fix vacuum cleaners. And DOP used to hit him all the time. I would stand there and watch him take the vacuum cleaner apart, watch him place the parts, sometimes in bins, and then he'd run out of bins, he'd set it on the workbench, we'd go to put it back together, and we'd be missing a part. I'm not kidding, we'd never find it. And it was really annoying, okay? And some of you are probably laughing right now. You're like, I never found it. I lost this thing and I never found it. Now, I did have a neighbor that would lose her house key all the time, twice a month. And she had a relative that would keep spare keys for her. I was going to do it, but of course, that would solve the problem. But I found out how she was doing it. I looked out one day, and her keys were on the street. So I went over and picked them up, and she would not answer her doorbell on her house at after a certain time at night. And I was persistent. And finally she looks at the window and she sees it's me. She opens the door. And I give her keys. Well, how did they get there? I don't know. Your keys are in the middle of the street. She puts them in her house coat. She got this thing that goes over her dress and puts them in and come out right away onto the floor. She had a hole in her house coat. But she continued to wear the house coat, continued to put her keys in there, and continued to lose them. And that's what you deal with older people. But I just wanted to touch on this. I've been reading articles on people that say stuff just disappears and then reappears. And that Dremel tool disappearing down in that slot. If you were to pick this handle up and walk at a certain distance, it would come back out of that slot and then reappear. I think that's it. All right. That's it.